gentlemen, we present the Piddingtons. And here once again as your commentator is Stephen Grenfell.
Good evening to you all, both at home and here in the number 1 Piccadilly studio right in the middle of the West End of London. Well, it's now my sad pleasure to launch the final Piddington broadcast, and this, as you know, the latest series of 3. Launch is probably the wrong word, since at least half of it will take place in an airliner. 20,000 feet, we now learn, above the ground, somewhere between here and Bristol. More about that later. Right now, let me introduce to you, and you to them, 4 very well-known, delightful people who are here to act as your personal witnesses tonight and as our judges. They are, first of all, someone who you will remember as the star of An Ideal Husband, more recently, Romantic Age, someone who's just had a baby called Pollyanna, Hugh Williams. As a new father, Hugh, but one who's done it before, how's Pollyanna?
She's very well indeed, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and I'm delighted to be here, and I'm looking forward to it as much as you are.
All right, Hugh, seat on the right, if you will. Secondly, a very eminent lawyer who won't let me say more about him than that he's found out more fiddles than most people in his time. Once worked for the BBC, but is now working elsewhere, which speaks for itself. Mr. Dudley Perkins. Dudley, with your gimlet eye, which the listeners can't see, will you say something?
Well, I'm here to watch with what is called an eagle eye sometimes, I hope, as a legal eagle.
Seat number 2, legal eagle.
Thank you.
Now, you remember Rosamund John, the film star who was here recently, who came hotfoot from Hammersmith. We've had that hotfoot journey repeated tonight by the producer and the star of She Shall Have Murder, no murder in the program tonight, someone you remember from many other films, particularly one in which you heard the Warsaw Concerto, incidentally a very old friend of mine, Derek DeMarney. Well, Derek, how are you?
May I say something? I would like to say something. I must say very quickly that I'm rather disappointed because Rosamund said she had a thrilling time holding Mr. Piddington's hand last time, and I thought I'd be holding Mrs. Piddington's hand. But I hear she's up in the air and I'm down with Mr. Piddington. It's terrible.
Derek, will you go and hold Mr. Perkins's hand in number 3?
Thank you.
And now a lady that I can describe no better than the first lady of the microphone and the silver microphone, Miss Gladys Young.
Good evening, everybody. I'm delighted to be here, and I can't wait for it to begin, so I'm just going to sit down.
Thank you, Miss Young. Also in the studio here in the middle of London, a studio which is well filled with an audience, our usual judges, all of them clasping envelopes, which you'll hear about, in their hands. On my right, that remarkable young Australian, Sydney Piddington. I'd like to say that Lesley was on my left, like Derek DeMarney, but she isn't here. She's, in fact, at this moment, flying on a normal training flight in a BOAC Stratocruiser somewhere over the very foggy West Country, flying at a great height, at a great speed towards somewhere or other, but we're not sure where. But, Sydney, will you tell them about it?
Thank you very much. Well, as Stephen Grenfell has told you, Lesley is in a Stratocruiser somewhere at a great height over England. And quite frankly, I'd rather like to hear from her because she left by train to catch the plane at Bristol early this morning, and I haven't heard a word since. So, would the engineers work one of their routine miracles and put us in touch with the Stratocruiser? While that is being achieved, by the way, would all you people here in the studio please insert a message or something that you've written down or something you've got with you into the numbered envelopes which were handed to you when you first arrived this evening. Just anything at all. Why, I'll tell you all about that later. And now we'll cross over to our aerial friends in the Stratocruiser.
Well, hello from a Boeing Stratocruiser high above England in somewhat bumpy circumstances. We are here, a lot of press men, and we're under the heat of movie reel cameras, and I need hardly say stewards and stewardesses going about their deft and courteous business. And with me in the plane is Lesley Pope, or Mrs. Piddington, who can't, I may say, hear what's going on. And next door to me here I've got Captain Bill May, who's in charge of BOAC, Stratocruiser and Constellation training. He doesn't want to be here very long, so here he is.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're now flying at approximately 15,000 feet. The weather is rather bumpy. We're on instruments, and you can rest assured that Mrs. Piddington can't hear anything that's coming over the air because it's very difficult to hear, and she is about 2 or 3 seats away from the closest party with headsets on. And if you'll excuse me now, I think I'll get back up forward and get on with my training program.
Well, thank you very much. You hear what height we're at. As I say, we're a little bit bumpy. The airplane, however, is extremely comfortable. We're very glad to be up. We thought we weren't going to be able to take off. That is the picture then in this flying hotel, rocking about. And now back, if you please, to Sydney Piddington in Piccadilly.
Thanks, Gilbert Harding. And now to keep you occupied for a few moments down here on terra firma, here is a test in which you can all participate. From the letters that we received after our first broadcast, it was obvious that quite a few of you listeners received the names of the football teams that were marked up on the board in the studio here before I received them. Well, here's your chance again. Every day, millions of Londoners travel on the tube, say on the Central Line. Right now, Miss Young, I want you to blindfold me at this microphone here, and at the board over there on the other side of the studio stage, I want you, Mr. Williams, that is after I've been blindfolded, to write up the name of any stop on the Central Line at which you wish in your imagination to board the tube. Oh, and by the way, I want you to disguise that name by adding as many dummy letters to it as you like. Right, Miss Young, will you blindfold me?
Well, Miss
Can I bend down?
Miss Young, who's an adept at blindfolding, got Sydney Piddington's only white handkerchief, got it round his eyes, tying a large knot. In the meantime, Mr. Williams, are you beginning to write up a stop?
Right.
Are you
Yes,
not?
thank you. Now, am I in front of the microphone?
You're in front of the microphone, you've got your hands round it, you're blindfolded, you've got your back to the blackboard, which is about 6 yards away. Mr. Williams, with a deft stroke, he once played the part of a schoolmaster, is writing up a name of a particular station and chucking in the odd letter here and there. Sydney. They're not quite ready yet, sorry. Plenty dummy letters.
Would you all concentrate on the tube station that has been written up on the board? That's the one that Mr. Williams is going to catch the tube. Just more intently, please. Just on the one station that is marked up. I think it's St. Paul's. Is that right?
No,
No.
not quite right, Sydney.
Would you concentrate on the letters? On the first letter? Is it S? Is it Stratford?
That's right.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Now, would you, Mr. Damane, just imagine that you've taken over from Mr. Williams, and I want you to go to the board and write up the name of the station at which you want to get off the tube.
Well, I've never been a schoolmaster, so I can't be as good as Cam, but I'll try. Oh, this reminds me of my school days. It's terrible. I'll never be able to read it. This will fox him.
Mr. Damani, who's at the board, is attempting to fox everybody, including yourselves, listeners, by putting in just about 3 Russian alphabets. But he's got
Has he
something-
finished yet?
No, he's now underlining it to make it difficult.
would you once more concentrate on just that one name that has been written up on the board? Tottenham Court Road?
What about it? How was it?
I'm converted.
Thank you very much. And now they should be ready for us in the Stratocruiser now, so let's prepare the first test for Lesley. Now, a large envelope will be taken down into the studio audience, and I want the people who are near it there to put personal possessions into that large envelope. Just something that you'll know when you see it again. Not too many things because we haven't got much time. And then, when they come back up here, I will take them out and attempt to transmit an impression of each one to Lesley up in the Stratocruiser.
Well, the producer of this program, Ian Messett, has done absolutely nothing so far today. He's walking around the audience with a large envelope in which he is getting as many objects, with which, incidentally, the audience here, with a childlike confidence, give to him their best belongings, which he's brought back now onto the platform. Good heavens, there's money in one of those things. Anyway, they've been put out on a table here on the platform, and Messiter is sitting nearest the pound note. I think Sydney and the rest of all the millions of things are yours.
Now, that appears to be a very fine collection. Are you ready for us over in the Stratocruiser, Gilbert Harding?
Yes, we are here, still gaining height. I'm moving even further away from Lesley Piddington. And here is Jean Gordon, a stewardess. What did you do with Mrs. Piddington a few minutes ago?
I searched her very thoroughly in spite of the cold. I made her take off everything. I looked in the padding of her jacket. I looked in her boots. I even looked in her mouth and her hair. And now I have her handbag, so I think you can be sure she's nothing hidden away anywhere on her person.
Well, here we are still rocking about, and back to you, Sydney, in Piccadilly.
Right now, I'm going to take up these articles, and I want you all in the studio to concentrate with me on them as I do. And now, Stephen, will you ask Gilbert to ask my wife to stand by in the Stratocruiser?
Gilbert Harding in the Stratocruiser, will you get Mrs. Piddington? Will you get Lesley to stand by right now?
Will you stand by, please? She is now standing by.
Food? Something about food. It's a ration book. It's something like a ration book. Just one piece of... It's an emergency card. Some of the things have been cut out. If you concentrate on the rations that have been left in, I'll try and get them. Milk, eggs, cheese, meat. That's all, I think. Will you concentrate on the second thing now, please? I think it's a pen, a fountain pen. Right, would you go on to the third thing? Piece of paper. It's a ticket. A bus ticket. It's a 3 halfpenny one. would you concentrate on the next one? Some piece of jewelry. I think it's a brooch. Is that it? Well, will you go on to the next? Money. It's a pound note. A green one. Would you concentrate on the number? I'll try and get there. It's a letter first. C 7 1 B 2 6 5 4 5 4. That's all, I think. Will you carry on to the next one?
I think that's just about all we've got time for. Mr. Damani, would you please check those articles and tell the listening audience what, in fact, they were here in the studio?
One definitely was the Ministry of Food, the ration card, exactly as she said. One was the 3 halfpenny ticket, and the other was the pound note, and I really must meet Mrs. Piddington.
I think two were not quite correct.
Not quite correct. One was a pencil instead of a pen, and the other one was a piece of jewellery, which was quite correct, but it was a wedding ring. I suppose you wouldn't call that jewellery.
Thank you very much. Now, just before we crossed over to the Stratocruiser, I asked all of you in the studio here to write something down or to draw a picture or provide something to be used later in this program. I also asked you to insert those, whatever they may be, in numbered envelopes which were issued to you as you arrived in the studio this evening. For this test, that is for the last part of this broadcast, I'm going to ask Mr. Perkins to nominate any two numbers between 1 and 150. In that way, 2 of the 150 numbered envelopes issued to you here will be indicated, and the enclosed contents will form the subject to be transmitted to Lesley. Is that all clear? Now, Mr. Perkins, will you call out 2 numbers between 1 and 150, and will the people who hold those envelopes pass them along towards the centre aisle, and I'll get Mr. Williams to go down and collect them and bring them back here on the platform. Mr. Perkins, would you call out the 2 numbers, please?
I'll call out 34 and 88.
Right, 34 and 88, Mr. Perkins nominates. Mr. Williams is now going among the audience here, around the right-hand side of this particular theatre, beginning to gather envelopes. I think you'd better hold them up so that Mr. Hugh Williams can see where they are, otherwise it's going to take some time. Down the centre aisle now to get a couple who are in the fastnesses at the back. He's getting a number of them, 2 of them now. And
now, Mr. Williams, would you give 1 to Miss Young and keep the other one yourself? Now, I want you to tear open both the envelopes, being careful at this stage to say nothing which will give anyone listening any indication of what the enclosures are. Now, Miss Young, before you show me your enclosure, would you mind answering some questions? Right? Now, have I at any time handled any of the envelopes issued tonight?
No.
Could I have seen any of the contents in any detail?
No.
Now, have I touched any of the envelopes since I asked for messages or some other enclosure to be inserted?
No.
Then, in your opinion, could either I or Lesley have any idea of the nature of those enclosures which you hold and which were determined by numbers announced by Mr. Perkins?
No, not possibly.
It's interesting to point out, by the way, listeners, at this point, that Lesley, Sidney Piddington's wife, is really isolated in an aircraft some numbers of thousands of feet above Bristol. She's been there for hours, and, well, Sidney, shall we go over to Bristol and see if they're there?
Yes, I think we will.
Right. Gilbert, Harding and Bristol, come in, will you?
Hello. We're still here, Stephen Grenfell and Sidney Piddington, and Lesley is still completely isolated. She's looking a little bit exhausted up to the last effort. We'll be ready for you again under exactly the same conditions. So
thank you, Gilbert.
Piccadilly.
Right. Now, Miss Young, will you and Mr. Williams come over to this microphone here? And I want you to show me your enclosures. Now, will those of you in the audience, if you can see what is written down or what these things are, please assist as much as possible in this transmission to Lesley.
All right, Gilbert Harding, please tell Lesley to stand by, will you?
Will you stand by, Mrs. Piddington, again, please? We're ready for you.
All right. A bird. One bird. Someone talking. Someone saying hello. Spirit. I can't make sense out of it. Oh, it's two lines. Bird, spirit. Hello. It's poetry. A couplet. Oh, I've got it. I can guess it. Hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert.
Miss Young, would you read out
Nice.
what is written down on the piece of paper that you hold?
Hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert.
Thank you.
Well, blithe spirit, Gilbert Harding, will you ask Lesley to stand by again, please?
Please stand by again, will you?
All right, concentrate again, would you, Sidney? It's not words this time. It's a drawing. A pattern. Draft board. Something it can't be. It's on paper. Oh, someone's giving a crossword puzzle. It's half filled in. They haven't got all the words. You want me to give the words there are? Right, concentrate on the first one, will you? Something about cards. People playing cards. Shuffling. Shuffle. That's one. And cutting. Just cut. Shuffle and cut. The next one, a window, no, curtains. The next one, someone working, An office? Like an office. Job. I think the next one's a head. Someone's head. The next one's about money. Books. Figures. Figures in books. Something about adding them up. Checking them. An accountant? No. Audit. I think that's it. Some more. Hot. Something hot. It's something wet. Hot. Dry. Drying. Dryer. Will you go on to the next one? Sorry, I can't get anything at all. I'm sorry, I can't get that one. Will you concentrate on the next one, please? I can't see this either. It's just a small word. Concentrate then on the letters. C O U Cull. Will you go to the next? That's all. That's all that's been filled in the crossword puzzle, I think.
Mr. Williams, would you please confirm that for our listening audience and also for our studio audience, explain what it is and what the words were. I think Lesley was completely wrong in one word which I can't read or understand myself, but if you'd explain it, please.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I take rather longer doing my crossword puzzles, but the first word was shuffle and cut, and curtain was right, and audit was right. The word that Mrs. Piddington said was head, was in point of fact cranium. The word that she couldn't make head or tail of is a word here which makes no sense at all, and the letters are C-A-I-T, I-double-F. And cull was right, and job was right.
Thank you very much.
Nice work indeed, Lesley. That concludes this broadcast and also the series. Sidney Piddington was here within a few feet of me in Piccadilly the whole time. Lesley, his wife, a few thousand feet up in the air in a Stratocruiser about 125 or 150 miles away in Bristol. Food for thought. Incidentally, you still there, Gilbert?
Yes, we're still here, now heading for home. I'd just like to remind listeners once again that Lesley could not possibly hear anything at all that was said or went on in Piccadilly. Relied for her cue solely on me. We're very grateful, by the way, to Mr. Charles Abel of BOAC for bringing us up in spite of the weather. I myself have been in touch with earphones and shortwave with Bristol and by landline from Bristol to London. Are you happy, Lesley?
Yes, thank you, I am.
Anything to say?
Well, only thanks very much, everyone, and you're the judge.
Well, I think maybe... Well, all right. And I'm baffled. Now back to Sidney Piddington in Piccadilly.
I have nothing further to say. I always agree with my wife. Good night to you all.
Thanks a lot, Lesley. And just before we close, thanks to Hugh Williamson, our Derek DeMarney, Dudley Perkins, the lawyer, and Gladys Young, and Gilbert Harding, of course, and Lesley Piddington and her Stratocruiser. That's the end.